Apologize for my tardiness, running from practice. Joining me is my colleagues, Alderman Jared Lippman and Alderman Joe Budge and Ms. Terry Hine. Staff would be Ms. Teresa Wellman and Ms. Cindy Gaines. The business before the committee is first, if I could ask, for approval of the minutes of our December meeting.
So moved. Second.
A motion's been made, properly second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Record will reflect the meeting's passed. General discussion. We've asked the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis to join us here this evening for its presentation, and I'll just take a few questions. I did not know when scheduled that this would be the exact same day that you had a board meeting. So bear with me, I just didn't know that. Only recently, almost this morning, I realized the board meeting was scheduled for today. So it's not so much as an oversight, it falls right in the time where I do the practices with that high school. So that's probably why I wasn't cognizant of it. But if I could ask the members to come up to the front, make sure when you speak, you will speak into the mic. Just identify yourselves, and that green light's illuminated.
First, I'd like to thank you for inviting us to come before you. I would like to give a few updates initially and welcome all questions and thoughts. We just came from our annual meeting in January board meeting. We elected new officers and set up 3 committees to help us in our decision-making process. I'm proud to have been asked to serve a second term as the chairperson. We have made some progress this year. We adopted a more modern set of bylaws that spell out more clearly the roles and responsibilities. We work closely with the city on security and inspection issues. A memorandum of understanding has been updated and signed with the city police. Our banning policy is being enforced. We have beefed up private security, enforcing our parking policies, and trying very hard to provide a safe environment for our residents and staff, and work very closely with the city on the inspections done on our properties. We clearly have many challenges in front of us this year and in the years to come. Among them are finance limitations, not only to just keep the basic upkeep of our current properties surrounding the recent inspections, but the redevelopment beginning with our Newtown property. We need to recover through reconstruction funds recognized during the past HUD inspections on procurement and grants that you have read about recently. We are plagued with past inadequate record keeping that we are trying to reconstruct. So if you have any questions, we'd be glad to take them from the committee.
Sure. Well, why don't we start right where you left off? And what is the situation with respect to the funds that are unaccounted for and the HUD's position on those?
You're talking about the OIG report for procurement?
I was talking about the funds that the grant, I guess
It's OIG.
Yes.
The OIG report.
The procurement? With the procurement, first of all, I want to make sure that the committee understand that this is not something that happened recently. This happened going back to 5 years ago. And basically, the OIG found that we did not follow the procurement process as we should have. We are working with HUD now to see if we can reduce or eliminate the $3-point-something million. We did do the work, we just did not follow the process. So we believe that if we can give them invoices and vouchers showing that the work was done, it was done competitively, then that amount will be reduced.
Thank you.
Just to amplify, we met last Wednesday? Last Wednesday with HUD. There's two different IG reports. On the procurement piece, the end of this month, there's a 120-day period where HUD receives the OIG report, and they are going to concur with it, say that we owe $3.1 million or something like that. We agreed in the next 30 to 60 days to come up with what Sandra's describing as kind of a cost. Go out and say what, basically go out and prove that the prices that we paid for is it 15 contracts, I think it is, were reasonable. Then HUD, Baltimore HUD, would go back to OIG and argue within January of next year to bring the number down. But at this point, our Baltimore HUD has concurred that we owe the 3.1. On that one, they feel pretty reasonable that we will be able to get that number much lower. On the other piece, which is the Ross piece, which is Robinwood, the Ross one is more complex. Sandra can speak to the Ross piece. Or
The Ross grant, they're saying that we owe
the total is 400.
$400 and some thousand over the last 4 years, I believe it is. The grant had stipulations that should have been followed, the work scope, and that was not done. And we do not have anything to show that it was done. Originally, that grant is just for salary for the Ross coordinator. That's all that grant covers, $260-some thousand per year to pay the salary.
Over a 3-year period.
Over 3 years, that's it, 3 years. To pay the salary and benefits, and I think it was like $2,000 for travel and training. We have nothing to justify the work that was done. We did have 2 separate coordinators in Robinwood, but proof of their work was never kept or done, period.
So we have a failure to control on the 400,000. That one is, they already concurred, fed Baltimore to OIG. That one is, you can't refute it, you can't go get cost. It's not like the procurement where you can go out and bid it out to say what would have happened, and therefore we did the work. This one is more difficult. I think the term you have to basically almost do like a forensic part to show that someone did the work. The challenge is, and we don't have record of it, did they do work for a 3-year period? So that one, if you take the full amount, which is 400,000, and you paid it back over 10 years, we'd owe $40,000 a year. That hurdle would be more challenging, which hopefully in the next 90 days or so, we'll have an idea of if that can be addressed. That complicates that one, that's a live grant. There's $400,000 right now in that same community with the same people. So the whole issue of control and authority, both allowing residents to do things that residents should be able to do, and having housing authority to have proper oversight and control, is being worked out in real time.
Sounds like that was salary for staff to do certain things. They had responsibilities, they had jobs to do, and they were paid salary for that.
Correct. Unfortunately, during that whole time period, housing authority, board, management, and so forth, did not have proper oversight and control, do record keeping, to be able to prove that the person did what the grant said to do.
So those people were not evaluated, there were no evaluations documented?
This is what we're trying to uncover. Right now, the answer would be HUD Baltimore saying we haven't responded. We gave us a 120-day period from August till December. So right now, we owe the money 12 months from now. We'd have to start paying. According to management, according to the meeting we were just at a minute ago, we'll probably have to go to outside of the organization to see if you can forensically figure out that type of information.
So there's no paperwork?
At this time, there's no paperwork.
What would the top 5 issues that we should be talking about today be? Let's start with that. I would assume finding a new executive director, is that on the list?
Yes.
Okay. Is that number 1?
I would think it would be
Okay. Number 2, I'm guessing handling these issues with HUD right now and coming up with an answer to the $3.1 million and separately the $400,000?
And being in trouble status.
And one second.
We've also moved as an authority into trouble status, which is not, you don't want to be in trouble status as a housing authority.
Okay. So 2 big issues there. What's number 3 on the list? Top issues that... Security? That makes sense. Newtown separate from security, or did Newtown development?
Basically, the underlying real estate, Newtown being on the top of the list.
Okay. So I think it's a helpful list. So, executive director.
I think you have to have financial, I think you hit it when you said the OIG is looking back at lack of financial control, procurement control, but there's a whole other looking forward under control of operating and capital funds.
The whole issue around finances needs to be addressed.
The lack of the security is a serious issue, and then I would say the lack of, this, which would fall under this committee here, delivery of resident services, be it on the properties through HACA or indirectly through other organizations, through churches, etc. There is no kind of community impact service delivery plan. I mean, there's pieces of one. And the other thing we got to deal with in real time is on the redevelopment issues. Even if we want to do Newtown, we met with some people that were in the queue a year or 2 ago that fell out. I mean, we've already, it's either 10 units or boarded up, I think it is, in Newtown. The challenge is there, even to actually address it, you're talking maybe 3 years to 5 years before you'd have dirt turnover. So the issue, and actually we were just talking over here about this, the issue is going to be the issue of portable vouchers. It's going to become a big issue. And portable vouchers. So if you have somebody in a property that's unsafe, where are they going to go? And even if you go and say it's unsafe and you want to redevelop it, there's going to be a huge gap. So I would say, and I said this earlier to Sandra, I think one of the most positive things since I've been on the board, and I was wrong on this, is Sandra picked up the phone and called HUD in Baltimore and went and met with them. When they came down, they basically complimented her in doing that. And actually said, I think it was a couple years ago, they came down and whoever was running HAC at the time told them to go away. What they said to Sandra, and I said it to the board, was we're in a high-risk situation right now. But because of the governance issue of saying we want to address some of these things, they use the example, we talked about, he has 60 housing authorities in his portfolio, and how quickly we can move from being a very high risk to a much better situation. But there, yeah, the challenges that you're describing that we're laying out there, they're real, and they're not easily solvable.
Some of the other issues I think that are on the list that came up during previous conversations is having a clean audit that is transparent.
So we just got the draft for the audit, I guess, announced at the meeting. We'll see it probably in the next week or so. We'll get that out to you.
Who did you switch up firms?
They had already started that process, and they've been doing the audit, I think, for 15 or 20 years. We met with them while they were doing the audit. We asked them to be more aggressive. Their audit, they only looked at $600,000 and above items. They found 2 or 3 things in the last audit. You dug deep. And on page 29, which I did this when I talked to you last, did say that we were a high-risk audit. We had switched that, so it was like a yes/no question. They considered us, at least going into this, to be a high-risk audit. That does not get into small amounts of money and all that. It's looking at big items. So we'll have that feedback within the next few weeks.
Do you feel like this audit firm is going to be capable of giving you a clean audit, given that it's the same? Is it because of the?
Well, I don't know about clean would be we don't have any problems. I would like to have an audit that says, here's all your problems.
Right.
I mean, so I didn't, the audit, you know, the way it was presented in the past was more like you had money come in, you had money come out. It didn't really tell you anything. It didn't have a management letter. It wasn't very aggressive, especially with an OIG report going into trouble status and big management turnover that took place. We asked, I mean, Chip and I and the board will meet with them. Hopefully we'll get that. I think Sandra formed some committees today that will drop deeper. Some of the stuff in order to deal with OIG and trouble status is going to require us. Well, I don't want to spend a lot of time looking backwards, but some of it, we don't look backwards. We can't pay $340,000 a year out for 10 years.
The trouble status, they've sent a formal letter that the Annapolis Housing Authority is on the trouble list.
A lot of the properties on a physical level, they dropped 12, 13 points. And these are big numbers to drop physically. That's like real time right now. And that's Eastport, all of them almost. You know, there's a lot of delayed maintenance on these properties.
Sorry for jumping around a
Is
bit.
that following the inspections with the city inspectors? or-
They're separate, but there's, I couldn't speak to the city one because they're separate, but when they ran through them
The
today,
city, I believe, just did interior.
this was physical. They're all interrelated. You know, can you habitat, can you rent a unit is different than, you know, what's the, you know, the plant, you know. A lot of these properties, I mean, they need to be redeveloped at some point. No one's in a queue right now. I guess one was tabled, right, 2 years ago?
Yes.
So it's basically has money spent on pre-development work, but it didn't go anywhere, and the new towns kind of fell apart. None of the other properties, to my understanding, have any real estate development work in them at this time.
Apologize for my jumping around, but let's talk about security a little bit. We had a first murder of the year, and that was on a HECA property, I believe. Correct? We had Annapolis saw its first murder of homicide of the year just yesterday, I believe. And I think
it's not our property.
it was not?
It's in Woodside.
Okay.
The property in front, but.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Town Drive, so.
Close. So
There was a shooting on the same property a few days before.
okay. So let's talk about security and I guess there's various ways security of the residents, crimes that are happening on property, banding lists. There's probably a few topics you probably could dive into for us.
So, can you hear me?
Barely. Yeah.
Is that better? It is now.
Yeah.
So the banning list, let's start there. The banning list is being utilized. The security guard team that we have out there. They're working in concert with APD. So far, it seems that both entities are working very well together in identifying problems, stopping people from loitering, working with the community, and making them not only feel safe, but actually being a little bit safer.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fleming, APD and who else is working together as well?
The professional services that we have, guard services that we have, contractors that we have on property on site. Now, while I realize when this first started, it was not a reactionary, but a quick stopgap measure to address the security issues that we were seeing throughout the properties. We have since, during that time, I guess, increased the volume and the time of those people, their efforts, professional guard services, so that we can cover more ground, more territory, and protect more people. That seems to be going very well. I will say, however, that as far as a long-term solution, something we're going to need assistance either from within or outward financially to make this continue long-term. It could get expensive. However, I think if it continues to work the way it is working, and with nothing else in its place, it may be well worth the money to spend. One of the things that we've identified is, right now, they're only working 8-hour shifts. Is 24 hours too much? I don't know, but something more than 8 hours, or at least picking the right 8 hours would be beneficial. But I think it's not unreasonable to assume that if we're only picking a certain time of day, then the other times that we're not there, it'll be identified and people will pick up on it. Just like if we only pick certain properties to protect, then you'll see the other properties that we're not protecting.
How are the hours designed? Are they based on hours where crime is at the highest, or when it's mostly the most populated? Because I would assume they're opposites.
Well, you just touched on a very pivotal point, and that's just it. So my initial thought would be to pick on a time period when it's later and you might have more crime. However, there's another element where you want people and children to get off the bus and feel safe and be able to walk outside or walk home, or to come outside on a Saturday afternoon. So there's a day period as well. So we're trying to cover the whole clock without enough resources.
Yeah, just because I got a couple of things on security, so I may as well clear them right now because you're right there. Now, there were 4 officers down here the other night, if my recollection's correct. That's correct? 4 security officers on Newtown Drive?
Yes.
Okay, those are our people, those are the housing authorities people?
I think that's the neighbor, I think that's the property next door is security.
Oh, okay, so you answering the question because they
I'm not
should
positive
be,
on that, but I think
They
that
have a home security which is 24 hours.
the adjacent
On
property.
their property.
okay, and we also have people down there?
I don't know.
They go from property to property, yes.
That was the next question, can they move around? Okay. Okay, because I know I've been hearing that there's a security firm in Eastport Harbor House. So I assume it's the same firm?
Yes.
Okay.
Has ACLU commented on the banning list yet, or was the banning list developed with their participation? So my recollection and understanding was ACLU lawsuit was the reason why the old banning suit went away, old banning list.
It went, Chip can speak to this, I think.
Yeah, what happened, the banning list that was approved when the settlement occurred is the current banning list that we are using. So they were in agreement with it at that time. There was some tweaking that perhaps people looked at doing, but we've gone back to the original, which is fully compliant with what we were supposed to be doing.
So then what was new? I thought there was this whole new rollout.
There wasn't.
No,
they weren't
there was
enforcing
some confusion over the years. The way it was presented, there was some, honestly, I think maybe attempts to make it a little easier. But that was not appropriate based on what was agreed to. So we finally got to the bottom of it and got the original, and it is what we're dealing with and what the city, the chief is completely in agreement with, and that's in compliance with the settlement. So all should be good in that regard.
So what's new is that the old agreement is being enforced?
Correct.
Okay. And do you, as a board, find that the old agreement is a good plan?
It was,
Or is it just?
you know, I think we haven't spent a lot of time because it was sort of mandated at that time. I would say that the chief of police feels very comfortable with it, and if he feels good about it, that's, to me, means it's a good plan.
Sure.
Our bigger short-term thing, I think I give Sandra and Chris and Chip credit for getting that part done. Our next challenge will be the process of implementing it. You know, having the right contact person at HACA, working with the police, and there's a fair amount of almost like PR around it. You have to post people and administratively, and that's really where the process is now. But I think I just happened to walk, you know, this is such a small town, I was having lunch yesterday, and the chief walked in where I was having lunch, and ended up having a 20-minute conversation over the banning list. I probably know more now than I did before from his perspective. So I think everybody's working in good faith. It's a lot of, now it's going to be communicated better with the residents councils, and the broader community, and then it has to stay enforced. I mean, I think what I actually just was talking to Andre, is, are the police going to be more vigilant on the properties now that they have this tool? We're not going to stop it with our security guards. It's going to have to be the police being more vigilant. And we're going to also run out of cash on this. We don't have the cash to this, because it's not structured this way to have the security guards on the HACA payroll.
Let's go back to finding an executive director and other management issues along those lines. What's going on?
Where we are, Sandra appointed a search committee, and asked me to chair it. We have 4 members. We've tried the traditional approach, which has been used, I guess, in the industry, where you put out an ad that goes across the country to the housing, various housing associations, NARO and whatever. And we got a lot of resumes. Some were very qualified, except not in the housing business. We've basically do not have, at this point, the new CEO for the organization. And I think what we're finding is that a lot of the folks that were in this business are now coming upon retirement and getting out. And we have not located our next executive director or CEO. We do not want to make a mistake this time, so we're trying to, and through Sandra's efforts with these new committees, the board is becoming much more engaged. We have Richard Walton, who is, of course, a proven finance person who has been asked twice to fill in as the CEO, and that's the role that he's playing right now. It's a sort of dual role. What I started to say is whether we end up having to use a search firm and going out and starting all over remains to be seen. There's a lot of positives being here, but like at least I found in my business, anytime you go out to replace somebody, very seldom do you ever get them for the same amount that the person who'd been there all those years and retired. So we have our challenges, quite frankly. I wish we were here to introduce you to our new CEO, but we do not have that.
Have you considered dividing that phone brings much of stuff. Have you considered splitting the responsibilities so that maybe if the ideal person that has all the qualifications may not exist at the price that you can afford, maybe splitting it into 2 positions? I'm not saying, just asking if you consider it, I'm not saying it's the way to go.
Well, we obviously are going to need key people in those secondary roles that specialize in the various parts. But we basically need a new leader. And that person, needs to have a background in the housing, a houser as they're called, in our judgment. And at least that's where we're strongly looking at this point. We may have to change that thought process, but we're not giving up in believing that there's somebody out there that, has the majority of the skills, and we can supplement the others through the board expertise and also some other folks.
Is it possible that the successor is sitting at this table?
Well, John is
I got a full-time job, I'm good.
I'm not so sure that's the case. No, not to my knowledge. I don't think any of us have, honestly, the skill sets that we would want in that person.
How are you doing with filling some of those secondary roles? Sounds like you had a vacancy, not just the executive director, but a few more.
Well, we just lost our personnel director, unfortunately, for health reasons. So, I mean, we've honestly been on hold because what you always like to do is, let the new, him or her coming in, assess what you have and where we are. But as time goes on, we're having to sort of regroup a little bit and look at, because we can't afford not to keep moving forward. And so through a strong board committee structure, I think we're trying to keep moving ahead. And as you know, when you're trying to hire somebody, they're looking at who's going to be my boss, what's their longevity, how's this going to work? So we're in a very interesting situation, and it's not ideal by any means, but we're doing the best we can with it.
Any updates on the Newtown construction redevelopment?
Let me start, and I'll switch it to John. There was the previous commissioners and whatever had struck a deal a few years ago to go into a joint development which is what is known as Woodside. And there was going to be, I'm not sure, it may have even come in front of the city council at one point, and a lot of work was done, a lot of money was spent with the idea of taking Woodside and Newtown and basically redeveloping them together into a very nice situation. What happened, I came on the board in April, and the next thing I know, the folks at Woodside had sold the property, and the joint venture that was intended therefore stopped. So all the good work that previous commissioners had done towards working towards a Newtown redevelopment basically stopped. So with us trying to regroup, and now John was just appointed to oversee our real estate committee, and the board's committed that that's going to be, we're going to look at all of our properties, but we have got to move ahead in some way to redevelop Newtown. John?
I mean, the Newtown situation is just terrible. And I think the people the Woodside deal that fell apart, we did meet with them maybe in November or December. I mentioned this earlier, even if we could resuscitate that old deal, which may be a good thing or not, I'm not really sure at this point, you're still looking at 3 to 5 years from what these were developer folks, and you would actually see a new building. So there's gonna be a relocation issue and regardless on that piece. But that whole area there, Woodside and Newtown, a lot of the murder that just happened, the shooting that happened in the since the beginning of the year, the Woodside people have put more money into security. They're doing 24 hours a day, like maybe even 4. I mean, they're putting a fair amount of money into it. But it's a serious problem for residents that are living there. It's become it's a drug market. And the police probably should be doing a lot more there. On the real estate side, basically, the 2 deals that kind of fell apart between 14 here, Blum and Newtown, there's nothing else in the pipeline. Really, the last time things started was like maybe '06, which was in Apples Gardens and College Creek overlay. So regardless of what we do now, it'll be a restart. We'll probably obviously focus on Newtown because it's critical when you're boarding things up and so forth. This is tough market right now. I mean, tax credits after Trump's election repriced 20% down. Basically, the people who buy tax credits are people who have high corporate tax bills. And tax bills go from 35% to 20% or lower, less demand. And I'm on another board that we had 4 deals that we'd already consummated with another bank that they've already said they're going to back out of it, even though they have an agreement, because they don't want to be 20% less equity. So you can make the same argument on municipal finance. So these deals will be harder. They'll still be doable, but they're going to be harder. And a lot of our properties, how they'll score and so forth. The big challenge is going to be on all the properties is, we have a lot of residents that live there a long time. Some of the properties have adjacent land, so maybe you could build something, move people over, and then demolish the other side. But a lot of it's going to be relocation. I'm talking about a 5 or 10 year period. We're not talking tomorrow. But it's going to be very disruptive to people's lives. And it's going to be, but at the same time, some of these properties, when we're talking $300,000-$400,000 at a pop to keep it alive, which is going to be wasted money, you're going to end up tearing it down. So it's going to be a broad conversation.
The other part, again, and I'm certainly John's closest to the guru we have as far as this side, but HUD wants out of the business of redeveloping properties, and they have for a number of years. And the previous boards realized that and had to do partnerships and lose control, quite frankly, in order to get properties redeveloped. And I don't see that going away. And so the issue we're going to have is to work with our communities to understand on both sides. If we're going to approve something, it's going to be a different world. It's going to be a different way. And what we have to do is the appropriate contracts and protection to ensure that our residents, number one, get better housing, but also a fair deal in that. And that's been a push-pull, I know, in this community for a number of years. But the real world is the old way of redeveloping, unless the state all of a sudden want to build another garage, over in Eastport or something, that kind of money is just not going to be there.
How critical do you, even if you got finance, how critical do you think that relocation piece is to residents actually being given a chance to a rebirth of sorts?
I think it's the big issue. People live here. This is their home. The properties, varying degrees, are past the useful life. They're hitting, when you have the scores we're getting on the physical at 49, Newtown, you're boarding up. So you're hitting past the physical life. So the issue becomes, and even on the portability of vouchers, it's not, as everyone in the business, it's not, from a resident standpoint, very difficult. And also, some of these properties, we have 3 or 4 bedrooms. That doesn't even exist in the marketplace anymore. Maybe you get 2, 3 bedrooms. So the whole reconfiguration of property. The good thing is this is not going to happen overnight. The bad thing is not going to happen overnight. The properties where there is land, you have the potential of doing some type of public-private partnership, multi-mixed use, building someone's new home. I mean, the only one you can really do that is in Eastport, well, maybe others, but you build the new home, so people move into something new, you tear down the old, redevelop the old. The issue then is going to be a land use policy. You know, how does that work for the city, the density issues? I mean, my sense is the conversation on, anyway, actually, the meeting with HUD the other day, I asked this question, because they know our portfolio better than we know it, would be Eastport and Harbor House, because there's land, and there's land value. And actually, the conversation that's going on right now in this industry is tax credits lose value, okay, Trump effect. Municipal funds come under pressure, less federal dollars coming down to the states. But if they deregulate, and which is what HUD could do, or it might take 2 or 3 years, where they loosen their regulations, the city, housing authority, may have more control of the land, do more with it. That creates value. So there may be something out further if you move along the pipeline and say, here's what we want to do. It may create some other value by taking some of the regulation out of it. So the issue becomes from the residents, for you as you three as the aldermen representing the residents, and say, how do we navigate that and create value? And you know, we don't know right now, but
I know it's going to be some years down the road, and rather you get to the private partnership piece of it, or use that land and just build a new, because there's going to be a definite relocation problem. But like for me, I can't see where you would put even 30 households while we did this one block of buildings. Just not feasible. I don't see it unless we had used one of the phases that was already promised to somebody, this third stage in Cox Creek. But then you got a wait list issue and a whole bunch of that.
We have the wait list issue. The only other thing is, as the city makes decisions, for example, in Eastport with the shopping center with 150 apartments, whatever, is potentially saying, why don't we move, take 30 of those units, and maybe change somehow we do some of the use now and some other zoning things that are coming in front of the city, so that we go and say we know we're going to need to redevelop part of Eastport. I mean Eastport Terrace, because that's probably worse shape. That it's all relative. But maybe that's another way where you go and say within Eastport, there's several people that want to put in units. That maybe go add another floor, get some more density. You got all those issues around density and travel that are going to play into this. But I think the earlier you have these conversations, and if we can do it over time, if we can do a building that has 30 units and...
Alderman Lippman asked me coming over here tonight, who represents the tenants' interests? Would that be just the RAP board? Would it be this board?
That's a good,
it's a combination of both.
With the requirement is to have at least 2 residents on the Board of Commissioners. I think right now, no matter how you count that, there's probably more than that. I think the RAP board and the tenant advisory board should be stronger. Some of them are, some of them, and this is my sense, and Sandra to speak better, some are stronger than others. But they should be more engaged. We should figure out how to engage them better. It's going to impact them. I mean, that's where you are. And this is literally the conversation I was just having with Sandra a few minutes ago. How do you engage them and understanding what their options are going to be?
I asked Mr. Atkinson come down. This is what you want to speak to?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. How you doing?
Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Ray Atkins. I'm the president of the Eastport Harbor House Tenant Association. I also belong to RAD. Those of us that live in, I guess you call them targeted or redeveloped areas, Eastport, Newtown, are very concerned about relocation. And the first feeling is that any talk, and it can be 7 years, 1 year down the road, things change overnight. But as the redevelopment plan is being considered, or selling or whatever, step by step, where are the tenants going to go? I am not a believer in vouchers simply because vouchers are subjective. The experience that I've had with vouchers here in Annapolis, as when I sold real estate, you couldn't make anybody take one. So if you're just gonna say the solution is, we're gonna give the tenants vouchers, and with the limited time they have to give it, you're just turning people out. And again, so many years down the road, things may change overnight. You know, everybody's talking about, well, we're gonna wait and see. I think that every step that's being taken should have somebody, these tenant associations, somebody there to know that their interest is being looked out for. You know, it's no problem about tenants being on the board and tenants being on, I mean, you know, and blah, 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 blah. But we need to feel comfortable, you know, because it's excuse after excuse. You know, we're looking at Harbor House, we see renovations and heating systems put in. And you're going forward with this type of stuff, but you're also saying that they may not exist in its present form anymore. So people are just nervous. You know, they just don't, and it's too much not being, we just don't know enough. You know, it's almost as if when you go to get questions, or you go ask questions of people, they sit and they feel like, well, you don't really need to know that. That's not your point of expertise. But with us living, and I remind everybody that in those properties, we have taxpayers now. You know, we have some people that are down on their luck, or some people on fixed income, but there's working people, there's taxpayers in there. And any community, that if you went into Watergate, you know, you'd sit down with the people and you tell them, and you let them know step by step, and don't just credit them, or just, you know, take them for granted, is what my point is. And I think people are very uneasy about that.
You know, Mr. Atkins, I've heard it. God knows my colleagues have heard it. I also think I think that the tenants need to know what's going on. I cannot answer all the questions, and I wanted the board to just hear firsthand, not from Robert Eads, not from Kenny Kirby, myself and my two colleagues. We're well aware that there are meetings held in this corner office right in this building, and none of us are even in those meetings. And we comprise the Housing and Human Welfare Committee for the city. But we're not in those meetings.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, there are some quarterlies or weeklies or some things, shenanigans going on right here in this building with the mayor, with members of this board. There are things happening in this building weekly that we aren't aware of. I think Chief Bristoup's in there, Ms. Finlayson's in there, the mayor is in there. I don't even know who's all in there. But I know they've been happening for the last 6 months.
Monthly meetings that are over at the police department.
You're talking about the security.
I don't know what they are. I know they do deal with housing.
Man, they're doing the security.
I don't know who on the board is meeting weekly at this office that you're talking about. And if you know of a board member doing it, I wish you would just say it. Now, what this board does is monthly meet at the police department with the mayor, with
Mrs. Finlayson
Finlayson,
and Mr. Arnett's there sometime.
right. And it's on security and policing,
What was the whole ban list?
expanding list. That's what they've been meeting for, but as far as anyone coming here to City Hall.
Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not here.
No,
And it's
that's
monthly.
that's what
It's
you're.
monthly.
Yeah,
And
so-
our understanding
Yeah.
is that it's open to any of the city council members, just like it's open to any of us on the board. And I can only go by that, and he has even
Well,
been there.
yeah, and I want to say something about that. I've been to one, and I was actually supposed to be on the banning committee, but they never could get a hold of me, or, you know, but I have been to one, and I want to continue to go to them, because I want to know what's going on.
Well, for the record, I had inquired about being in attendance, and I was told I would constitute a quorum. And I've passed that on to my colleagues as well some time ago.
I think that's also why we did it that way. I think we say that because there was a quorum issue. I don't think, I mean, right now.
I just want you to hear, and
Yeah, what
hear
people say.
Mr. Atkins, and hear why there is so, you know, that his thought process is right where it is, and these trust issues continue to crop up.
Yeah, I think they're real. Today's the first day that we met to form committees to try to break up the work on the board. I think there's really no reason any of those meetings aren't open. It's not, I don't think we're even I don't think we're all volunteers. If we're not operating with staffs or anything like that. On the real estate stuff, I mean, I'm pretty clear. I don't think I've been involved in affordable housing for 30 years. There's not a lot of paths. You want to redevelop the property, you got to deal with where the money is and who you can partner with. There's not a lot of paths right now. And you have to work, in order to do it, you have to bring the residents along with you. I mean, if they don't want to do it, then they'll let the housing fail. I mean, and then at some point, they'll go into receivership. It's not overly complicated.
I have talked to Mr. Atkins a little about this. I haven't been here to go through the whole process with redevelopment when it comes to what has happened in the past. It seemed like it wasn't a great thing. I did find that residents had to be very, very involved, because one of the reasons why it did stop so suddenly was because the tenant council didn't feel reassured that we were being told the truth completely. When they tell you, we're going to make sure everybody comes back into this community, that's impossible.
Correct.
It can't happen. Because if that's the case, if the housing authority, for instance, is not making any money off of Morris Blum, somebody else can't come in there, leave the same people there and expect to have this big revenue. It's just not possible. So the residents are gonna have to be involved, and they're gonna have to be educated so that they'll know the difference in what's actually happened and maybe what's being told to them. So we had to actually get on the computer, get in touch with HUD, and if it happens in any of these communities, they're gonna have to do the same thing. And I think RAD need to take more of an active role in helping to see that they are educated along with the resident.
I mean, the most successful redevelopment properties in the Washington area or anywhere is if you have a strong tenant council, in this case also a RAB that's strong. And then you're involved in the process and you're basically trying to figure out, there's property management issues, there's real estate issues, there's service delivery issues, and then there's kind of that almost like programmatic day-to-day control of use of public spaces. And we didn't even really talk about that. We have a lot of public spaces within HACA. And most of them are in pretty bad repair as well. Some are better than others. But when you do something like this, how do you keep those community amenities? And these are the things that those discussions have not even started yet. I mean, as far as worried about there's been a conversation, it's zero. The only conversation you have is me saying you need to have a conversation, not me, but we, the board, saying we have to have a conversation, or we're gonna have another decade go by and we're gonna be boarding up buildings.
We won't.
My question,
We're not gonna get there. We won't get there because it's just like Mr. Gordon said. The federal government doesn't want to do it, but if the property goes into receivership, then the judge will appoint a receiver and they'll get done, and the tenants will win. But even at that point, the tenants need representation to sit in those meetings. All along the way. I did it for 12 years of my life under Mayor Randy Flynn, and the receivership was under Harris Spencer was administrator, Judge Gary did the receivership. So, and it was federal receivership. So I know it can happen very much.
Yeah.
And I was on that tenant task force. Happened to have been the president of 7 meetings every week for 52 weeks. But I was there. But I was a tenant force.
receivership. I mean,
Nobody wants it.
No, we're gonna do our best to stay out and so that we can make with the residents the best decisions we possibly can.
Yeah, I just know how vital it is for the residents to be a part of it if we want
That's
to
the
work.
only reason we're in business.
Yeah.
But years ago, at least there was resources for the receiver to go to.
Mhm.
I mean, the resources are gonna be the same place, which is gonna be some type of public-private partnership. There's just,
Well, it's big for us right now to have some stability right here because we can't go anywhere. I've tried some of our resources and I know what I've been told. So we need some stability first and foremost.
so what, in the process of getting ready for this role, I mean, Speaker Bush is our delegate, you know, he's interested in touring the properties, he's interested in retouring them, not that he hasn't toured them, he's toured them a zillion times, but also looking at what can the state do? Because the city has its resources, but this is gonna be a city and county and federal ask as well as credit ask. Hopefully within the state, we can find help there. So we need to play that card, and this is where the three of you and the rest of the aldermen, I mean, I think having a conversation with him and Senator Astle and some of the other representatives here, we need to be on their priority, because these are big dollars. These aren't little. I mean, all the numbers are big. And we don't want to just waste the money on maintenance and then have to do a big rehab. But hopefully, over the next several months, we can at least have some working document to say, here's around what we have to do to kind of get the conversation going. And a lot of it's going to be like these type of meetings here. I mean, getting people at a table and starting to talk through it.
I would think before seeking help from those people you just mentioned, having an executive director of the plan.
We have got to clean up our act. Okay, I mean, trust me, we're working as hard as we can.
I mean, as a consultant to you all, you're all volunteer, hardworking people, contributing a lot to the city and to the board, so I didn't mean to offend, but.
No, I'd be the first to tell you, and I'm the first to say, we are not in a good place. Okay, we're gonna get there. It's slow, and we have to take a step back here and there, but the board has the best of intent. This board has the best of intent to move us forward.
We have to be, and this is kind of a weird process, we have to be willing to put our dirty laundry out and say, here's where we are. At the same time, reach out to people and say, that have been offended by the dirty laundry and say, well, here's where we want to go. And I think, looking at it from Harbor House, Eastport, and Blum, it's interesting to hear the friction from residents to the current and management, current staff, current board, as well as the historical board. So trying to change all those trust levels and conversations, may be a challenge in its own right, and a clearly changing financial environment.
Ms. Wellman, is there You got a pocket full of money? You have a pocket full of money?
Little pieces of money here and there to help out.
Nothing to do with
This magnitude.
I know you've had an extremely long day, and all four of you are new members of the board. All four of you came before this committee, so I even appreciate who you brought here tonight, because collectively we did feel like you had some answers. We know you got some expertise from your resumes. So, and I think the best people there who can help us make informed decisions. I just need Andre and the rest of the tenants sharing those informed decisions.
I agree.
Because
we made a commitment that we will be more open. And I think that we have tried to do that, and we will continue to do that. This board will make sure that that happens, because they're
And
fully committed.
we talked just tonight about how do we involve the resident boards and
Transparency and honesty.
in what we're doing, because that's why we're in the business.
Even the
It's
issues
very
around
basic.
emissions and recertification, how do you get it more transparent? How do you keep it open? So people feel like it's not a rigged system. And some things may have been broken. I don't even know half the time, other than there's not transparency. And then getting them.
When you go get information from Hacker, when you recertification or whatever problem, it's what comes out of one's mouth, and then you may talk to somebody a little later, and it's altogether different. And I've had that happen from personal experience. You know, everybody say you don't have a lot of resident participation. Well, a lot of residents feel betrayed or don't feel like residents.
Yeah.
And that needs to be corrected. And the other thing, which I don't want to keep going with the same thing, but you've already admitted, well, everybody is not going to get a place. But we got to come up with something well in advance so people can get a place, or a 99%. You know, I mean, there shouldn't be a reason in this whole mess that any tenant, in which is subjected good standing, but any tenant that pays their rent and do what they're supposed to do in raising children, they shouldn't have to worry about, well, am I going to be one of the ones in the lottery?
Yeah.
And so that should be stamped and written in stone.
Hopefully, whichever way, partnership or land use, there'll be somebody there that will be a relocation specialist, and with the RAB board or the tenant boards and the board of commissioners and whoever make that investment, we clearly define good standing. And I mean, quite frankly, I can tell you that when Franklin Field was finished, where I was, 22 people went to court. There were 17 subsequent evictions in that new community. And I ran. But they also sat before the housing judges, just like this. Everybody in the household, 14 and over.
You want
was on that lease. That was on that lease.
Yeah,
They were well informed of what was going to happen if you came before one of these housing judges. And they were in the room with you and your kids. So, I mean, everybody you probably don't want back.
Well, that's true, but it shouldn't.
But that's why I think the urgency is now, because that's what it's going to take to change communities.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just going to get same faces in a brand new community. And
that's-
10 years down the road, we'll be seeking help again.
That's the
I'm
design.
telling you, you've got to change some attitudes. I know it. And I grew up here in Oakland.
I think these are the policies that we have to dig into that right now are just kind of floating, you know, but I would say tonight was a discussion around emissions. Now the policies will go around recertification, which is really what you're talking about here. Can the person be here? And from a board policy level, which is different than redevelopment, because you're right, we can't just rehouse the same people that are, you know, causing the problems for the other people that are there. We have to figure out how to have those two conversations at the same time. So when you say some people, I'll leave it there, but that's basically the conversation that has to have happen.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
And we're not feeling comfortable with both property management and eviction and certifications right now to accomplish that, and additions.
well, can't believe that, you know.
And that's why it's gotta get on the table.
It's gotta be talked about, this is my
Right.
point. It's just
Yeah.
like the elephant in the room, and everybody's talking about how bad off the properties are, but nobody's talking about the residents and their future.
Yeah, yeah, I'm ready for it, I think it's a
Because
good.
But if the property up, you won't have.
Well, that's my point, so the purpose of having ACA is for the residents. So, I mean, let's do things with the residents in mind, and you know, there gotta be some tough decisions, that's anywhere in life.
Yeah,
But let's put the residents first.
Well, I think we are collectively agreeing that residents are gonna play a vital role in this one way or the other. We're gonna try and keep everybody on board, informed as well as we can, either through this setting or just through some information channels. Obviously, I see a new commitment from this board, so I'm gonna listen until I see differently. I want to thank you all. I know you've had an extremely long evening. Ms. Atkins, I would like to thank you for coming here too. I think it's vital that the Board of Commissioners heard the things that, because you're not alone. You represent some tenants, and I've heard from other tenants. So, you know, you're the duly elected representative, so you're speaking for town people. So, thanks.
Right, well.
I'd just like to add that how you all here and speaking knowledgeably on the issues that we're talking about gives me some optimism that HACA will be turning the corner and improving. You all took on this assignment knowing that it was a dire strait, so it deserves commendation from all of us, appreciation you have. Just hope that we can continue this dialogue. Let us know what important questions we haven't touched on that we should have asked but didn't. And if you can help us give some more structure to this dialogue in the future, I think that would be helpful.
Two questions, or two comments, I guess. One, we'll see you again Monday night. We're expected to come in front of the city council, and I don't know, we'll have to decide whether, I know we're not gonna have this kind of time, but, you know, we'll just give a general overview, I guess, to the mayor and to everybody. And maybe if you can speak to that we've had this meeting,
Correct.
you know, that would be helpful. And the other thing I know we're willing to come back. If we can sort of figure out on what kind of, are we coming every month or and maybe not. But I mean, when, and so we can prepare and sort of put it on calendars too.
we just get a little bit off cycle with,
Yeah.
like, you know, I love volunteering for this thing, but
Well, we can't even do the Board of Commissioners every month. I mean, it's with the regular councilors quarterly.
Right.
Yeah, and
So
we wouldn't be able to do you every month. I can tell you that right now.
My 2 cents is that if we could have this discussion quarterly, as dictated by you, let us know when quarterly makes sense, whether just at the end of the quarter or beginning, and then to suggest to the mayor and full council that if we're going to be doing this quarterly, taking up an hour of your time, hour and a half, that maybe we don't call you back to the full council, that anyone from the full council that wants to ask questions to join this committee. The purpose of the committee is exactly this, to be able to dive in, to have a dialogue, and not have that in front of the full council when we have lots of other pressing issues that, not as a suppression, but that it's short bits and pieces. So to me, this whole discussion is appropriately here and is not appropriately before the full council, but I think the full council needs to know that this committee is going to take this on and that they'll be notified and invited. Right. That's up to the chair and mayor, not really.
Well, I concur. I concur, and I told Ms. Chapman that perhaps we can take our information back to the full council, and I don't know if we're going to be able to council this next meeting,
No.
Monday night.
We're coming.
Yeah, well, we had a meeting council. We would have been together as a full council Thursday, and that would have been easier done. But that meeting got canceled on us today, so we're not gonna come together, so now. Yeah, we won't be together until Monday, as a full council.
Can I ask a question? When will the minutes of this meeting be ready? Because it seems to me that that could be shared with the full council, because there were a number of things you talked about today. So, you know, where you are with the CEO, where you are with the IAG, those things are like summary points that would be good to share with the council, and if the minutes were done by the council, none of them.
The minutes don't become, regardless of when they're done, the minutes
They
don't
won't
become
be till
official until
approval.
the next
Okay.
meeting. Exactly.
But it could be good talking points for the meeting, if it was
Yeah,
at all.
yeah.
No? Okay, no.
And we'd have to figure out how to do a more, not a formal meeting. We just got notice a few days ago to come, you know, which I think is good that we're doing this. We'll have to figure out how to, you know, transmit information to you in a more organized manner so that if you're going to forward it to your colleagues, so we could, I don't know.
If I may, I think this kind of informal discussion is very helpful, and it's also very different than the more formal dog and pony that you're gonna do in front of the council.
Yeah.
Both have their purposes, and they're very different. And this is much more of a, let's roll up our sleeves and figure out how we can work together. You have just, the HACA has lots of discussions with the administration, but this is your chance to actually have a discussion with the council as opposed to a dog and pony. Because at the end of the day, we all have to figure out how we can help you.
The other thing I would say though, you may be making an assumption that we're spending a lot, and I'm not sure who the administration is, but of who we're talking to, because we really, you know, don't have official, we're not talking to anybody special. We are doing through Mrs. Finlayson asking us to come to the work on the security, and that's how the MOU got redone and the banning and things like that. So they have done some working very effectively with us to try and do some things. So I think, you know, it's a matter of pulling it all together. This is very helpful because we need you to understand where we are and to give us support and thoughts and whatever. And as you can probably see, we're dead honest about where we are, and we'll always be that way.
We'd have to really work on some deliverables for both parties. So I think part of it would be good to have, kind of like, I think you described it well, kind of these frank conversations, but at some point we have to figure out is what we're asking you or you're asking us, and where we're going to get some money from, or how do we position ourselves better, or what policies have to be changed, or as you described, some of the tenant stuff matters. But I don't think our brains aren't there yet. I mean, we haven't gotten there. We're still kind of in a discovery on this business. There's a lot more information to get from tenants, really understanding the finances better, and even thinking through your committee and the council and how you lobby, you know, the county, state, etc., how we participate in that or don't participate in it. I mean, so I think you probably could end up giving us more advice on how you could be helpful, and you know, where we're just going in the wrong direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett.
We got other meeting now?
Mr. Chair, I nominate you as the chair for the last year.
Motion to adjourn, second.